The cold Columbus wind bit at my face, but it was nothing compared to the chill of betrayal. 22 years. I'd given 22 years of my life, my sweat, and my loyalty to Sal's Hardware and Feed. My name is Frank Miller. I knew every nut, bolt, and bag of chicken feed in that store. I knew customers by name, knew their kids' names. And for what? So Sal could fire me a week before my 48th birthday to save a lousy $1.50 an hour. The new state minimum wage was supposed to help people like me. Instead, it got me a pink slip and a smug little speech about tough business decisions. But Sal underestimated me. He thought I'd just fade away. He was dead wrong. Sal Jr. inherited the store from his father, a man who believed a handshake meant something. Sal Jr. believed in spreadsheets and squeezing margins. He'd walk the floor in his crisp new polo shirt, talking about the Sal's Hardware family, then retreat to his office to count the day's receipts. He drove a new truck every 2 years, yet he'd lecture me about wasting shrink wrap. This wasn't a tough business decision. It was pure, unadulterated greed. That night, sleep was a stranger. I found a large piece of cardboard in the garage, a remnant from the new water heater I'd installed myself using parts one bought at employee discount from Sal's. The irony was a bitter pill. My wife, Linda, found me at the kitchen table, a thick black marker in my hand. Her hand rested on my shoulder, a silent question. "He gets away with it if I do nothing," I said, my voice rough. She squeezed my shoulder. "Then don't do nothing." I uncapped the marker. The fumes filled the quiet room as I wrote the simple, devastating truth. My protest wouldn't be loud, but it would be seen, and it would cost him a hell of a lot more than $1.50 an hour. The ink from the marker bled into the cardboard, a spreading stain, just like Sal Jr.'s influence had bled into his father's legacy. I was 25 when I started, green as summer grass and newly married to Linda. Sal Sr. didn't ask for a resume. He looked at my calloused hands. "Know how to work hard?" he'd asked, his voice gravelly but kind. "Yes, sir." He shook my hand, a grip like worn leather. "That's all I need to know. Welcome to the family, Frank." And for 20 years, it was a family. If my son had a fever, Sal Sr. would tell me to go home and he'd cover the floor himself. When I needed a loan for my first car, he co-signed without a second thought. I wasn't just an employee. I was the store's memory. I knew which families had wells and which had city water, who needed deer corn in the fall, and whose grandkid was building a Pinewood Derby car. Then Sal Sr. got sick, and Sal Jr. came home from business school. He walked the aisles staring at his phone, a clipboard his only friend. He saw inventory, not solutions. He saw customers as data points on a sales chart. The phrase, "That's how my dad did it," became a curse word in his office. The little changes started stacking up. He'd switch our trusted American-made tools for cheap imports with a higher profit margin, and I'd spend half my day dealing with returns on the junk he'd ordered. I remember Old Man Hemlock coming in for a single bolt for his 30-year-old tiller. Sal Jr. told him to check Amazon and walked away. I spent my lunch break digging through the spare parts bin, found one, and dropped it at Hemlock's house on my way home. I never told Sal Jr. He wouldn't have understood that an 80-cent bolt guaranteed a customer for life. The last time I saw his father, Sal Sr. grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "Keep an eye on him, Frank," he'd rasped. "His heart gets lost in the numbers." I tried. I taught Sal Jr. how to mix paint, how to talk to contractors, how to be part of the community he was supposed to serve. I was the bridge between his father's world and his. And for $1.50 an hour, he decided to burn that bridge to the ground. So as I finished the last letter on that sign, I wasn't just writing about a job. I was writing about a broken promise. A promise made to me, to the customers, and to his own father. The marker felt heavy, weighted with 2 decades of loyalty. And I knew, with absolute certainty, he was about to feel every ounce of it. The day he fired me, he called me into his office just before closing. His father's old office, now sterile, and smelling of lemon-scented cleaner instead of sawdust and pipe tobacco. He didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye, staring instead at a spreadsheet on his oversized monitor. "Frank," he began, his voice devoid of any warmth. "As you know, the business landscape is changing. We have to adapt to new market realities." I stood there, my hands still grimy from fixing a customer's lawnmower pull cord on my own time. Market realities? Sal, what's this about? He finally swiveled in his expensive leather chair, the kind that cost more than my first car. "The state's new minimum wage mandate kicks in next week. It's a significant jump. I've been running the numbers, and unfortunately, we're going to have to make some tough decisions." That phrase, tough decisions, hung in the air like a bad smell. It was the coward's way of saying, "This is going to hurt you, not me." "I'm letting you go, Frank. Your position is being eliminated." The words felt like a physical blow. They didn't compute. "Eliminated? I have been here 22 years. I'm Steiner the store. And we appreciate your service," he said, his tone as flat and lifeless as the spreadsheet on his screen. I could see it from where I stood. A line with my name, my hourly rate, and a figure next to it highlighted in red. That was me. An expense to be cut. "But your rate, plus the mandatory increase, it's just not sustainable. I'm replacing the position with 2 part-time kids at the new base rate. It's simple math." Simple math. My life, my loyalty, my family's security, all reduced to a column on a screen. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "After everything I taught you? After everything I did for your father? You're replacing me with a couple of high schoolers who don't know a lag bolt from a carriage bolt, all to save $1.50 an hour?" For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed his face. Annoyance. "It's not $1.50, Frank. It's business. My father ran this place on sentiment. I run it on data." "Your father ran it on respect." I shot back, the heat finally rising in my chest. "He knew that taking care of people was the best business plan of all. He would be ashamed of you." That hit a nerve. He stood up, smoothing his pristine polo shirt. It was a clear dismissal. "My father is dead, and I'm in charge now. I'll have HR mail you the paperwork. Your final check will include your accrued vacation." He glanced at his watch. "I have a dinner reservation." I just stared at him. At the son who had inherited a legacy and turned it into a liability. He didn't see a man who had taught him how to mix paint, who had covered for him when he was late, who had stood by his father's side for 2 decades. He saw a number that was too high. He wasn't just firing an employee, he was erasing his own history. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind me on 22 years of my life. As I passed the front counter, Maria, who'd been there for 15 years herself, looked at me with wide, worried eyes. I just gave her a slight, grim shake of my head. She knew her turn was probably coming. He'd got the whole place of its soul, one spreadsheet line at a time. That memory, raw and stinging, was the fuel. It was the ink in the marker. He ran his business on data. Fine. I was about to give him a new data point to consider. The true cost of betrayal. The next morning, I was there before the sun. I parked across the street and walked over, not to the employee entrance, but to the public sidewalk right by the main driveway. The cardboard sign felt steady in my hands. The letters were black and clear. I worked here for 22 years. Sal Jr. fired me to avoid paying the new $1.50 per hour minimum wage increase. This is my reward for loyalty. I just stood there. I didn't pace, I didn't shout. I just held the sign, my expression as neutral as I could make it. I was a fixture, just like the old oak tree at the edge of the lot. The first truck that pulled in belonged to Dave Henderson, a contractor who'd been buying from Sal since before Sal Jr. was born. He slowed, rolled down his window, and squinted. "Frank, what in the world?" I gave a slight nod. "Morning, Dave." He read the sign, then read it again. His face hardened. He didn't. Yesterday afternoon, I said, my voice even. Tough business decision, he called it. Dave just shook his head, a look of pure disgust on his face. He didn't say another word. He just put the truck in reverse, backed out of the driveway, and drove off. One truck. One sale. Gone. A few more cars pulled in. A few more familiar faces looked at me, read the sign, and without a word, turned around and left. They didn't need a speech. They knew me. They knew my word was as good as a bag of concrete. Then, at 8:55, Sal Jr., shiny new pickup, roared into the lot. He slammed on the brakes when he saw me, the truck lurching to a stop. He jumped out, his face a storm cloud of fury, his cheap polo already looking tight around the collar. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, stomping over to me, stopping just short of the public sidewalk. "Good morning, Sal," I said calmly. "Take that sign and get off my property." I looked down at my feet. "I'm on public property. I'm not shouting. I'm not blocking anyone. I'm just sharing a true story with my neighbors." "You're trying to ruin me," he sputtered, his voice rising. Just then, Mrs. Gable, a sweet old woman I'd helped pick out garden seeds for the last 2 decades, was walking toward the entrance. She stopped and looked from Sal Jr., Miss Furious face, to my calm one. She read the sign. Her kind eyes met mine, filled with a sad understanding. She turned to Sal Jr. "Is this true, young man? You fired Frank over this?" Sal Jr. flushed, caught off guard. "It's a business matter, Mrs. Gable. It's complicated." "Doesn't sound complicated," she said, her voice firm. "It sounds cruel." She patted my arm. "God bless you, Frank." Then she turned around, got back in her Buick, and drove away. Sal Jr. looked like he was going to explode. He pointed a trembling finger at me. "I'll call the cops. I'll have him arrested for trespassing," he shrieked, his voice cracking. "Go ahead, Sal," I said, my voice as steady as the hand holding the sign. "Call them. Tell them a man is standing on a public sidewalk, exercising his First Amendment rights. I'm sure they have nothing better to do." He actually did it. He pulled out his phone, his thumb jabbing at the screen like he was trying to kill a bug. He paced back and forth on his side of the property line, barking into the receiver about a disgruntled ex-employee who was harassing customers and, quote, creating a public disturbance. I didn't move a muscle. I just stood there, a silent testament to the truth. Every car that slowed down, every head that turned, was another small cut in his paper-thin authority. 10 minutes later, a Columbus police cruiser pulled into the adjacent lot. A single officer got out, a tall man with a calm, professional demeanor. Sal Jr. practically ran to him, pointing at me and talking a mile a minute. The officer listened patiently, nodding, his eyes flicking over to me and my sign. He never once looked intimidated or rushed. He was just taking it all in. After Sal Jr. finally ran out of steam, the officer walked over to me. He stopped a respectful distance away. "Morning, sir," he said. "Officer." I nodded. He gestured with his chin toward the sign. "Your former boss seems to think you're breaking the law." "I did my research, officer," I replied, keeping my voice low and respectful. "I'm on public property. I'm not obstructing traffic. I'm not using profanity or making threats. I'm just telling the truth." He read the sign again, slowly this time. His eyes met mine, and I saw not a hint of judgment, but maybe a flicker of something else. Understanding, perhaps. "You worked here 22 years?" "Yes, sir." "Started when his father ran the place." The officer was silent for a moment. He looked back at Sal Jr., who was watching us like a hawk, expecting to see me in handcuffs. Then he looked back at me. "Well, sir, from what I can see, you're right. You're not breaking any laws. As long as you stay on the sidewalk and don't block anyone, you're free to stand here all day." He gave me a curt, professional nod. "Have a good day." He turned and walked back to Sal Jr. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw Sal Jr.'s face go from triumphant to purple with rage. The officer gestured toward me, then shrugged as if to say, "My hands are tied." He got back in his cruiser and drove away. That was the moment the tide truly turned. It was no longer just me against Sal Jr. It was me, backed by the law against a petty tyrant. And people were noticing. More and more cars were slowing down. But now, I saw something new. I saw phones. Passengers holding up their smartphones, recording. What Sal Jr. didn't know was that my protest wasn't just happening here on this strip of concrete. My wife, Linda, had insisted. "One man with a sign is a curiosity, Frank." She'd said that morning, her jaw set with determination. But a story shared with the whole community? That's a movement. Before I left, she'd taken a photo of me holding the sign, my face grim but resolute. She posted it to the Columbus Community Forum on Facebook. The post was simple. "This is my husband, Frank. He gave Sal's Hardware 22 years of his life. Yesterday, Sal Jr. fired him to get out of paying the new minimum wage. He's standing there this morning because loyalty should mean something. If you agree, please share." And they were sharing. I could almost feel the digital groundswell. The honks of support started. First one, then another. A pickup truck from a rival landscaping company drove by, and the driver gave me a thumbs up and a long, loud blast of his horn. Sal Jr., who had retreated to the front door of the store, flinched with every honk. His perfect, data-driven business model hadn't accounted for this. It hadn't accounted for community. Around 10 o'clock, the front door opened, and Maria, her face pale, walked out carrying a trash bag. As she passed the end of the aisle, she made eye contact with me. Her expression was a mixture of fear and solidarity. She walked to the dumpster, but on her way back she did something I'll never forget. She veered toward the sidewalk, her back to the store's security cameras. As she passed me, she discreetly placed a bottle of water and a granola bar on the ground by my feet. "From all of us," she whispered, not even breaking her stride. She was back inside before Sal Jr. could notice. That small act of defiance hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't just my fight anymore. An hour later, Sal Jr. stormed back out. His face was blotchy, his hair a mess. He must have been watching the online fallout. He marched right up to the edge of the sidewalk, his fists clenched. "Okay, Frank, you win," he spat, his voice low and venomous. "You're making your point. How much? How much will it take for you to take your sign and go home?" I looked at him, at the desperate, cornered look in his eyes. He still thought this was about money. He thought he could buy my silence, just like he thought he could buy loyalty with a paycheck. "It's not for sale, Sal," I said, my voice clear and strong. "My dignity isn't a line item on one of your spreadsheets." He looked like I'd slapped him. He opened his mouth to say something else, but his words were drowned out by the arrival of a new vehicle. It wasn't a customer. It was a white van with a Channel 6 News logo on the side. It pulled up and parked right behind the police cruiser's spot. A reporter and a cameraman got out. They'd clearly gotten a tip. Sal Jr., his face went white. He looked from the news crew to me, then back again. All the fight drained out of him. This was a battle he couldn't win with threats or money. This was a public execution of his reputation, and he knew it. He turned without another word and scurried back into the store like a rat returning to its hole. The reporter, a sharp-looking woman in her 30s, the reporter's name was Jessica. She approached me not with the predatory energy I expected, but with a look of professional empathy. The cameraman kept his distance, framing the shot to include my sign and the sterile, empty storefront behind me. "Frank Miller?" she asked, her voice calm. "Yes, ma'am. My office got about 50 emails about a Facebook post this morning. Can you tell me, in your own words, what's happening here?" I took a breath, the cold air steadying my nerves. I looked directly into the camera, not as a performance, but because I wanted everyone watching to see I had nothing to hide. "I worked in that store for 22 years, I began, my voice even. "I was hired by Saul Sr. He taught me that this business was about helping your neighbors. It was a community pillar." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Sal Jr. took over. Yesterday, he called me into his office and told me my position was being eliminated. He said it was because of the new state minimum wage increase. He said he could hire 2 part-time kids for less than it would cost to keep me on. 22 years of loyalty, erased by a spreadsheet to save $1.50 an hour." Jessica nodded, her expression unreadable but attentive. "And what do you hope to accomplish by standing out here?" "I just want people to know the truth," I said simply. "I want them to know what kind of man is running this store now. This isn't about me anymore. It's about the fact that loyalty should be a two-way street, that a man's life's work should be worth more than a rounding error on a balance sheet." She thanked me, and they filmed a few more shots of the empty parking lot and cars driving by, some honking in support. As they packed up their gear, I saw it. The real-time consequence. My daughter, Sarah, was texting me screenshots from Linda's post. It had been shared over 1,000 times. The comments were a rolling tide of outrage. People I didn't even know were calling Sal Jr. out by name, pledging to take their business to Lowe's, to Menards, anywhere else. Local contractors were chiming in, talking about the declining quality of materials and the loss of expertise. Sal Jr. hadn't just fired me. He'd provided the spark, and the community had provided the inferno. Just before noon, a sleek black sedan pulled into the lot. A man in a sharp suit got out. I recognized him instantly. It was Mr. Abernathy, the regional VP for DeWalt. He came to the store twice a year to meet with Saul Sr., and after he passed, with me. Sal Jr. had always been too busy for him. Abernathy walked straight over to me, ignoring the store completely. He had a grim look on his face. "Frank," he said, extending a hand. "I saw this online. I didn't want to believe it." "It's true, Mark," I said, shaking his hand. He looked at my sign, then at the empty store. "My father did business with Saul Sr. for 30 years. They built their businesses together, on a handshake. DeWalt doesn't put its name in the hands of men like his son." He pulled a business card from his wallet. "When you land on your feet, and you will, you call me. Any competitor of his will be very interested to know you have my personal endorsement." He didn't even glance at the front door before getting back in his car and driving away. That was a bigger blow than 1,000 lost customers. That was a pillar of the business, a foundational relationship, turning to dust. The afternoon wore on. A few more people stopped, one woman dropping off a thermos of hot coffee. The parking lot remained a ghost town. I saw Maria and the other 2 employees leave at 3 p.m. Sal Jr. must have cut their hours for the day. There was no one to help. Maria gave me a small, sad wave as she drove past. Then, just after 4, the front door creaked open. Sal Jr. emerged, looking like a man who had aged a decade since breakfast. His polo was rumpled, his face was pale and sweaty. The swagger was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed desperation. He walked slowly, hesitantly, to the edge of the sidewalk, a man approaching a guillotine. He didn't yell this time. His voice was a hoarse whisper. "Frank, please." I just looked at him, my expression unchanged. "Okay, you've made your point. The news, the internet," Abernathy called. "He's pulling the line." He ran a shaky hand through his hair. "He's pulling the whole DeWalt line. Do you know what that means?" I remained silent. He knew I knew. It was a death sentence. "Please," he begged, and the word was small and pathetic. "Come inside. Let's talk. I'll give you your job back." The raise, everything. I'll give you. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time all day. The slick, confident manager was gone. In his place was just a scared kid who'd been given a kingdom he didn't know how to rule. He wasn't offering me a job. He was trying to plug a hole in his sinking ship, and he thought I was the cork. I slowly lowered the cardboard sign, resting its edge on the cracked sidewalk. The silence stretched between us, thick with the ghosts of 22 years. "A job, Sal?" I finally said, my voice quiet but carrying in the cold, still air. "You think this was about a job? This was about a promise. It was about respect, the kind your father gave every single person who walked through that door. The kind you can't buy, and you sure as hell can't get back once you've thrown it away." He flinched, the words landing like physical blows. "But the raise." "You still don't get it," I said, shaking my head with a profound sense of pity. "You could offer me the whole store, and I wouldn't take it. How could I ever work for you again? How could I stand in that building and pretend to respect a man who sees loyalty as a liability? A man who would trade 2 decades of service for pocket change?" His face crumpled. The last bit of fight, of bluster, just evaporated. He understood, finally. He hadn't just lost a day's sales or a good supplier. He'd lost the one thing his money couldn't fix, the heart of the business, his father's legacy. I let go of the sign, leaving it leaning against a small bush on the public side of the grass strip. A simple, devastating truth for all to see. It had served its purpose. My fight was over. "I don't want your job, Sal," I said, my voice flat and final. "I came here for my dignity, and I'm leaving with it." Without another glance at him, I turned and started walking. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the weight of his failure behind me, a silence more damning than any shout. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. My shadow was tall and straight. His, I imagined, was very, very small. What would you do in my shoes? Would you have the guts to make a sign and protest? Or would you handle a situation like this completely differently?